Welcome back to project 345. As you guys can see, we got most all of the paint, actually all of the paint done. Just a little bit of touch up around the edges and whatnot here on the body. But as you guys can see, I got the satin coat finished for the engine cover here. All the stripes looking decent. I thought I was going to be able to get away with not having to polish this thing, but I was incorrect. As you can see around the edge of where I masked up all the lines, there's just a little bit of a lip, and that's caused by the paint overlapping the masking tape, and then when you take the masking tape off, it leaves kind of like this rough edge. So I'm just going to take a super light, either a polish or a really light polishing paper, and then go across that. Alright, so let's focus on the first stage here. The light is making my hands look like I'm 90. I'm not really this color for whatever reason. The lighting in here is just goofy today. So I wanted to apply tint to the cabs. And I'm not talking like super dark tint, just like a blue tint for the side windows and then a brown tint for the skylight in the top of the cab. This is something that I should have done in the beginning, and because I forgot to write it down, I forgot to do it. So the reason I'm putting tint on the windows is to give it a little bit more realism and give the windows a little bit more depth. Without it, the windows are super clear, which is nice, but when you're looking at it in person and not actually on camera, it's almost hard to tell that there's anything actually there. And when you look at a machine or a vehicle in real life, you can see that there's glass there. It has a little bit of a blue color to it. Even if they're using polycarbonate windows, they'll usually put some sort of a UV resistant tint on the outside of that plexiglass so it doesn't turn yellow. So this is just an ultra thin blue, you see it's pretty translucent vinyl, and I'm going to cut a little square out here. I'm not trying to get exact here because I'm going to come back in with Mr. X-Acto blade. Alright. The adhesive side down. Once this touches the glass, don't pull it back up. If you do, just get yourself a new piece. Because once you pull that adhesive away from the glass, it creates a bit of a, sorry, try that scene again. So once this stuff touches the glass, don't pull it back away from the glass. And if you do, just throw it away, get a new piece. Because what happens is it removes the adhesive, or it pulls the adhesive away from the vinyl, and you're left with a really unattractive appearance because it leaves, it just basically looks like adhesive. It looks like you got water behind it. I'm just taking my fingernail and just pushing the air bubbles out to the outside. Again, you always want to stick the adhesive in the middle first and then push outwards. Kind of like putting one of the protective covers on your cell phone lens. And then I'm just using a piece of skewer here that I used for my painting earlier, and I'm using the end that actually has the paint cured on it because it's a little bit smoother. Just slowly cut along that seam. Alright, tint is done. Let's get some white background here so you can see that, ooh, color is off. It's a little bit of a blue, clear in the front, and then brown on top. It'll look better once it's all put together. Now I need to fix some little spots on the top where I goofed up and pulled the paint off with the masking tape. Just a little bit of leftover airbrush paint, just tiny brush, and just need to carefully get in there and hit those little spots. Alright, time to do some chrome paint here. Got the little mirror, and I've got the Molotow chrome paint pen, and I'm going to just chrome this guy up. Keep the tip on the work surface, walk the tip around the work surface, and just basically guide that little pool of paint around, and then let it spread out and set up, and you'll get that nice mirror-like finish. I'll cap my pen so it doesn't dry out. You don't want to like draw it on like you're working with a pen. You're working with paint and you're trying to get a chrome-like finish. So as soon as that tip touches that, it's going to start that flow. Don't push down on it to activate the spring unless you're not getting paint. Just set the tip on there, pretty much no pressure at all, and just walk that tip around, and you'll see the paint start to pool around the tip, and just walk that paint to where you want it, and then remove it as close to the middle as you can, and then that paint will flow out. That's the same thing I did for the mirror on the side of the cab. You can see pretty nice result. The stuff is impressive. I saw it advertised once on Adam Savage tested channel, and I definitely drank the Kool-Aid, and it works. This stuff is awesome. I highly recommend it. Alright, decals are done. You see a really large contact sheet here. I like to print a bunch of them because I don't have the best printer in the world, so I can't always guarantee that they're going to print out perfectly. And I also am not the best decal applier. I have been known to mess up a decal or two, so I like to give myself extra just in case I goof one up. So basically I get the pick of the litter, and they got the little red stripes here because I wasn't going to try to hand paint that on, and then all of the rest of the decals, including the, see if it'll focus, the LME portion for the 345B. So the last time I polished a model, I did it with a little buffing wheel with my rotary tool. This time I'm not going to do it that way. I'm not trying to, the last time I had a polish because I had paint that wasn't shiny and had a lot of like overspray on it, and I needed to bring it back to a gloss. This is paint that's already glossy that I just need to even the coat out on and get rid of these. Actually, the lines aren't that bad on that side. Get rid of these little paint lines here on the side. And I think I'm going to bring a little uniformity back to the shine right there. I'm not going to touch the top at all. The engine cover is just the way I want it. But the gloss part definitely needs help. So instead of using a power source, I'm going to do it by hand. Just a basic little cotton cloth here. The polishing worked out really nice. I went over with just this really small sanding stick, went along the line, knocked it down enough to where it's not really visually catching. I didn't want to go too crazy with it and end up messing up some really hard work, and then give it a good soapy wash. There are little waxes in that polish that you can buff down, but I don't want that on the surface of this because I'm going to be applying decals to it. So give it a nice wash, and then take a clean one of these, and then give it a really decent hand buffing to kind of shine everything back up. It looks good. I'm happy with it. So I think it's almost time for decals. I got all the decals cut out here. Looking pretty good. Try to cut as close to the digits on some of them as I could. And I'm going to redo the stripes here. I just printed these up, resealed the decals. The previous stripes I did like this, and it leaves me a really small margin of error because it's a white background, right? So I cut out the screw out one here. There's little strips, but I'm not sure if I cut exactly to the red or not. And if there's just like a little bit of white on the edges of this, it's really going to stand out on the black paint and won't look as clean. So I gave myself a little room for error, and I reprinted them with a black background, so that way if I don't get quite up to the red line, it's not going to be a big deal. It's not going to be as obvious on the model. Alright, so the first part we're going to do here is the red stripe. Hooray, decals! The only thing that intersects the red stripe on this excavator is the cat logo itself. So all of the model numbers sit above the red stripe, and the red stripe continues. There's a cat decal that goes on the side of the cab right here, and the red stripe stops at the door and then starts just a little bit behind the decal. So I'm going to get that installed first. Let's figure out how much of this I need. Put it on the tensioner side first, pull it back. Roll it the sprocket. Good. All right, the moment we've all been waiting for. Completed Caterpillar 345. I'm pretty happy with the results on this. Only a couple things on here that I am not too satisfied with, and I'll show this to you guys at the end here, but it has come out pretty darn nice looking. Do a slow rotation here, then I will do a little bit of a more detailed run through on it. Alright, so let's do a little top-down run through here. All the hydraulic hoses and lines that were added to it. All the pins in place. I took these little guys and clipped them down, painted all that stuff in, got all the pin retainers in place as well. The lights, I don't know if I actually showed these to you guys. Turn it around here. But I ended up doing, I was going to just run these in with a little piece of tubing into the boom, but I decided to create a little L bracket to hold it in place. There are a couple details on this model that I'm not completely satisfied with, but they're super minor ones that I can change down the road. The first of which is the tint that I used on top of the cab for this glass right here. Adhesion isn't very good, and it was peeling up a little bit. So that's an easy fix I could change later. And the second thing is the decals. The decals look good from a distance, but when I look at them closer, I'm not satisfied with the finish. And the reason is because I used a different sealer on my decals this time. I found a bottle of the Tester's decal bonder, and it works good, but once I applied the micro sol to the top of it, which is an agent that helps it flatten out, it ended up flattening out the finish on the decals, and it didn't come out very good. And also this red stripe, if you get a closer look at it, it's kind of wonky. But with my next project, I will use the acrylic sealer instead and just print some new ones for this, remove these guys and replace them. But overall, I am really happy with how this thing turned out. Decal and tint aside, overall, I'm really satisfied with this machine. let's go over a little bit of details about the 345 itself. So the 345 is actually a relatively important machine in the Caterpillar lineup, and it's one of those machines that I really never paid much attention to until I decided to take this project on. This actually wasn't the model I was planning on building for this episode. I had another excavator in mind that I was going to do, but for some reason I was just drawn to this one. And to be honest, it's because I thought it was going to be an easy swap. I thought I was going to throw an undercarriage on, swap on the new boom, and wham bam, a couple weeks be done. And that was not the case. Like with every project I do, I dig deep into them. I go through the internet and I scour it for photos of the machine that I'm trying to build. I look on advertising pages, auctions, people's personal collections, whatever, and I download the images into a file, and then I study those images as I'm working through different parts of the model and discover new things about it. And in doing so, I end up reading through brochures, studying my Caterpillar performance guides, and just learning everything that I can about the model, reading on forums about it, what have it. And I ended up realizing, like, this was a pretty big machine for Caterpillar, and I'll tell you why. So you guys know, like, the history of Caterpillar's excavators. In the 70s, they came out with their 4 main 200 series excavators, the 15, 25, 35, and 45. And throughout the 80s, they released some other 200 models. I'll cover those later because some of those are actually going to be future builds. Throughout the 80s, they worked with Mitsubishi and worked on some other stuff. And a lot of the work they did with Mitsubishi led to the 300 series that was introduced in the early 90s. They released the models through, appears to be 1992 and 1993. For the top end of Caterpillar's line, they had the Caterpillar 330, which replaced the Caterpillar 231D. They had the Caterpillar 350, which replaced the Caterpillar 235. And they had the Caterpillar 375, which replaced the Caterpillar 245. But there was a pretty large gap in the top of that line between the 30, the 50, and the 75. Customers needed something that was in a size between the 30 and the 50, and they needed stuff that was in a size between the 50 and the 75. So what did Cat do? They introduced the 345, and they also brought out, move the camera back here, the 365. So I'll show you guys these models side by side here to give you a bit of a size comparison. Unmount the camera so we can do a pass over without crashing into the tripod. Moving my finger. So let's line these guys up a little better here. So if you guys can see, they're pretty close together in size. So these two models replaced the Caterpillar 350 in 1997. The 350 was removed from the range, and the lineup was the 345, the 365, and the 375. The 375 would eventually be replaced, I think, in 2001 by the 385. But this was the beginning of Caterpillar really tightening up the ranks and putting a bigger variety in the models that they offered to meet different customer demands. And now I think Caterpillar has quite a few. Honestly, I don't really pay much attention to anything newer than B series excavators, but as you guys can see here, they're pretty close in size. And if you were to put a 350 in here, it would probably be almost identical to the 345. All right, guys, that wraps up this episode. Thank you guys for watching. This one was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about patience. That was the biggest one. Having the patience to see details through to the end and taking your time and just making sure it comes out the way you want it to. And if it doesn't come out the way you want it to, having the willingness to redo the part and make it look the way you want it to. And that's like the biggest thing. When you look at a model that you built, look at the parts that you're not happy with and figure out why. Is it simply a matter of skill? You just didn't develop the skill yet to make the part look the way you wanted it to? Or is it because you weren't patient on the part you rushed through it. Reflection is really important when you're doing this kind of stuff. So don't be afraid to redo a part, redo something. I mean, look at what happened with the paint. I ripped all the paint off the back of the model. You dig down, figure out what went wrong and how you can fix it and how you can avoid it happening on the next project. And don't be afraid of criticism. I would love to see more people share their work online on the forums and on YouTube, on Facebook, wherever. Don't be afraid of constructive criticism from other people. And don't be afraid of the dicks. People are going to be dicks. And you can't let them rain on your parade. They're unhappy with themselves. They want other people to be unhappy. They think it's funny to put people down. Whatever. Just ignore them. You gotta have thick skin. And when people are being buttholes to you, just don't let it get to you. So yeah, I definitely would like to see more people posting the projects that they're working on, because I think it really motivates other people to work on projects as well. I've gotten quite a few messages already. People saying, hey man, I really like the channel. You've motivated me to start working on models myself. You know, I dug out an old model from the closet that I put in there 4 years ago and didn't want to finish because I wasn't happy with the results. You know, that's the kind of stuff that I really like to hear, because this isn't a business for me. This is a hobby. I'm doing this because I enjoy doing it, and doing videos of it seems to be the best way to share. I always forget to take pictures, but I don't forget to do video. So we have a really cool community here, and let's just keep it going. As far as what's next for this channel, well, first of all, this situation has got to get sorted out. This workshop, I gave it a minor overhaul before this project, but I'm not happy with my lighting. I would like something better for my camera, some sort of wee bendy arm that I can mount the camera to so I can move it around the desk when I'm filming so that you guys can get a better look at what it is that I'm building. So I'll do an episode on that, overhauling this garage, overhauling this workshop and getting it squared away. And I'll give you guys like a workshop walkthrough too, because this isn't a big space that I'm working in. I'm working in the corner of an office. The rest of this office, I have my computer and I have my gym, and it's a pretty small space. So you don't need a lot of space to work. It's about working smarter. And then we'll get into the next project. I'm not sure what I'm doing next, but I'm pretty sure it's going to have wheels instead of tracks. Anyways, guys, stay tuned. I'll see you soon. Take care. Stay healthy. Adios.